taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hello everybody, it is November 9th, 2018, and this is the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. This is the Friday edition of the show. My name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with the guy who knows the things, Cybsidian. How are you doing, sir?
I am in so much pain. So today's going to be a short one, and it's going to be pretty quick, and goodness sakes, there's a ton of news to cover too. So it's going to be, we're going to be quick and fast today. Like couple mini rants and yeah.
Hashtag side rant. Yeah, so hello to everybody who's listening. Please say hello to us in the live chat if you're out there, and send us your comments and questions there as well. And we'll read and respond to as many of those as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button and tell us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well, and we appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up on the audio platforms. This week it's going to take us longer because I'm gone next week, but if you want to get the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit that the link in the description to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where in addition to the podcast you will find lots of other fun and informative gaming content there as well. So hello to Notional, Megan, Dancing on the Ashes, Overlord 580, some familiar faces if you're new here this not this morning, but today. Say hello to us, and we'll try to shout you out when we can. So, there's been a bit of a kerfluffle about Brotherhood of Steel and Fallout 76, and some confusion about what's going on with the lore there. And so, why don't you give us a quick overview of what's going on there, and then we'll try and clear the air on some of this.
So first rant. So this will be the first rant, and basically, this came about because there's a couple of YouTubers who have been posting videos and talking about this, and they didn't even take the 10 seconds that it takes to go over to the wiki and read up on the latest info. There's one YouTuber in particular, who I'm not going to name, of course, who was really upset that he said, I thought I heard that there wasn't any West Coast Brotherhood of Steel in the game, and I went over to this one place and I found their bodies there. So clearly there is, and he made a big rant about this. Of course, if he had taken the time to read the actual Wikipedia article, as flawed as this logic may be, he would have read that they are not from the West Coast, and that this is not the West Coast branch of Brotherhood of Steel members in existence in the game as we see them, dead or not. This is basic, like, again, if you play through the story, if you listen to the holotapes, which again, horrible way to do this, not giving any credit to Bethesda on how they implemented this, but if they had done this, they would have seen that this is explained extremely clearly in the lore in the game. And what it is basically Roger Maxim gets a hold of a satellite via the West Coast, and he contacts as early on as in some cases it's kind of alluded to, and as soon as he gets this thing connected, he starts to contact as many people as he can that are still existing within the U.S. Military structure. And so there's many groups throughout the West Coast, East Coast, North, South, even some even some out on some islands in the Pacific, even some in Europe, in various strongholds in Canada, and of course in places like Alaska, where there is existing military groups, functions. There are some military vessels that are still surviving, and he starts to contact them and say, look, this is what we discovered. This is, your country has betrayed you. They betrayed you before the bombs fell. Now there's no leadership. Join us, join the Brotherhood of Steel. And there are lots of these groups who start to join the Brotherhood of Steel. The one that we're encountering here is the Appalachia chapter, headed by by a former U.S. military personnel by the name of Elizabeth. I cannot pronounce her last name. So this Elizabeth, she's a lieutenant in the army. She's a ranger, part of this group stationed out in Appalachia. She actually has known Roger Maxson pre-war, prior to the Great War. She knew him quite well. She's a little skeptical, but then she and her and the remaining forces that she has under her command end up joining the U.S. Joining from the U.S. Army, join the Brotherhood. Why this is important to note is that Bethesda has done very little to the story and has done very little to the lore overall. They've kind of treated it kind of like this hands-off kind of thing. They haven't really gone in and done a lot of restructuring. They even pulled some of their data entries in Fallout 3 from the Wikipedia because there were some spelling errors and structure, the way that some of the grammar was structured, that was identical in the vault or in the computer entries within Fallout 3 that were present in the Wikipedia prior to that. So this is them now starting to kind of take control of the story and taking control of certain aspects of the lore,
right? And starting to expand the lore.
Yes, and starting to expand it
before that. This whole period, it was not covered in the lore before. We didn't know what was happening with the Brotherhood this early on in the timeline.
And this is huge to remember, that this is significant in the fact that Bethesda is now taking the lore and starting to move with it. Again, you may not like what they're doing, and you may not like how they've handled the lore in 76. I have certainly made that abundantly clear that I'm not happy with it, but there is a lot of people who are putting out false information, completely false information, that if they had spent, a couple minutes, again, listening to the terrible way that they communicate it within the game, that they, as the professionals that they are and the capacity that they are, should at least be apprised of this. And so I wanted to bring this up because it's a little annoying to me. With all the problems that you have with Fallout 76, there's a lot to hit on them that is accurate and good to hammer them on.
Legitimate criticisms kind of thing.
Legitimate criticism, making up or lying about criticism, or not having the wherewithal to actually go and do some basic investigation and then hitting them on a point that doesn't exist. That doesn't do anything, because all that's going to give them is the ability for them to say, yeah, you're totally wrong there, which as a company they would want to do. They'll want to look at some of the criticism and say, yeah, sorry, but you lied here, or you said something that wasn't true. You said this, and that's not what's going on. In fact, the opposite is going on here. And so this kind of stuff is important. If we want to hold Bethesda accountable for certain bad choices that they're making, you can't inflate things and make those things worse. One of the big things that happened this week, which we've confirmed here with some connections to some significant modders in the industry, is that there's this thing going around that, oh, look, they're so money grubbing, they have already 6 DLCs planned. Well, the way that you're looking at the file structure and the way that people are pulling this information is not correct. Thuggy went through, he looked at the data, and yes, this is not correct. Secondly, that isn't even an argument, because they've already confirmed that all of the DLC coming for the game will be free. And we know from the past 8-10 years of free-to-play games that the one thing you do not do is you don't gate your free-to-play or buy-to-play games through content rings of purchasable DLC. You only kill your audience when you do that, because you have to keep everybody in the loop. It's like Fortnite. Fortnite gives updates to the map for free. If they didn't, the game would die, because every time there's an update to a map and they're saying, hey, you have to pay us, $1 to get access to this content, you'd have a bunch of people stuck at various points through the history of the gating of the content, and that doesn't work. So even in the perspective of a game developer's perspective, this doesn't work at all, and this doesn't exist. So people who are saying that, oh, look, they're going to charge us for DLC, no, you're wrong. All the DLC is coming for free, because A, that's how the system works, and B, they've already stated that that's the process that they're going to be following. Again, make an issue with the way that the Atom Shop is structured. Make a point to laugh at the fact that they're charging $5 for a stupid hat. Like, these things are ridiculous and stupid and silly and maybe not worth the price that you're paying. You pay about, in some cases you're paying between $20 and $3 for certain costumes in Fortnite. And buying a hat in Fallout 76 is going to cost you about $5 at the moment. Now, these prices are not set. The store, as far as I could tell, wasn't really necessarily like open all the way. So some of this stuff might change, and they might offer refunds and whatnot. But like, don't collect everything in the Atom store just cause. Like, that's the first rule to free-to-play gaming, is like, don't buy everything that's offered to you. Only buy what you legitimately actually really want. Take a few hours and sleep on it, and then come back and decide whether or not you want to make that full purchase. Out of everything that I've seen in the Atom shop so far, there's only one thing, and it's not even confirmed to be out. We just saw a screenshot of it. There's only one thing that I would consider spending any Atoms on, and at the moment it looks like, I mean, just from the Atoms that I've earned while playing the beta, that I already have enough to buy it. So that's kind of the thing where it's like, don't make assumptions, you know, based off of what other people who aren't looking into this. There's a lot to be negative about with 76. The game is not the, I would say, if you're a fan of the Fallout game, or if you're a fan of Bethesda games in general, give this an honest try. There's a lot of people saying don't buy, don't buy, don't buy. But what I've discovered is that the more time I spend playing the game, the more time I want to play the game. There's a lot of bugs, and I was really pissed off a couple of times in this last beta. I ran into some of the sound issues, that some of the sound bugs that were there. Ran into, I mean, me and Ash still can't add each other as friends.
Or we have added each other as friends, but we're like invisible.
Oh, we've done it like 10
really
times,
weird.
but still not. Hey, Whisper 803, nice to see you. It's this kind of stuff that, yes, there's lots of bugs. Yeah. But honestly, when I'm playing the game, when I'm leveling up, it's so fun to level up, and I already want to start a second character. So this is a really, 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 really good sign that this is having this kind of an impact on me. I think this game, if you're a fan of that stuff, you'll enjoy this as is. There's two ways to look at it. You can buy the game, and some people say that's supporting a bad game, or you can buy the game, not spend any Atoms at all, and that's sending a different message. Or you can buy the game, spend next to no Atoms, and be really vocal about what you want and what you demand from Bethesda moving forward. There are some people who are saying, look, the engine's garbage, engine's garbage, it needs to go. There's all these modding tools that are making it so that you can cheat in the game. Again, false information that's been largely disproven by the people who know what they're talking about, and it has not been proven by the people claiming that this is what's happening. Again, false stuff for you to get angry about that may not even exist, when there is a lot of things that do exist that you can get angry about and complain to Bethesda legitimately for. It's like, if this is also doing something that we've never seen a Bethesda game do before. This is allowing us, the players, to play the game at the same time, in the same world, that the Bethesda employees, that the Bethesda developers are playing at the same time. We've already seen that there's been some people that have run into devs from the company and have partied up with them and had fun. The day that I get to play with Todd or somebody else from the studio is going to be really, 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 really awesome. That may or may not happen at all. But the fact is that now it can happen, whereas that could never happen before in any Bethesda game ever. So right. This is hugely, hugely important that we're so close now to being able to interact with the developers, to let them know what our real concerns are, and that they have to listen to us. It's not just like, oh, looks like we made a game-breaking bug in Skyrim, we'll get around to fixing it in the next patch. It's not that anymore. It's like, here's our list of stuff that we think can make the game better, and they're actively listening to that kind of stuff. So it's not just on not on the modders anymore. We have that open door communication with the developers, and honestly, it's not looking to be a bad thing. It's looking to be a good thing. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple different ways that you can look at it, and definitely this is one of the things to kind of look positively on it. As far as the lore of the Brotherhood goes, this is good, and this is important, because what this does is this lets us play a game in the Fallout universe maybe 60, 70, maybe 100 years after the war instead of 200 years after the war, and be able to interact with Brotherhood in lots of different places potentially. Either small or maybe sometimes big, maybe hidden. We can now create a lore story where this is possible. This is completely off the top of my head, but this is now possible. Say you're booting up a new game, Fallout 5, 6, 7, down the road. This is way, way down the road. One of those stories can work around a Brotherhood of Steel chapter who got contacted by Maxim, who were like a mobile group or a group from a ship or something like that. Then they landed somewhere, found a vault that had this horrible experiment going on in it, went in, saved the people, fixed the problems, but because of the extreme conditions outside, they decided to seal themselves in. So they're part of the Brotherhood. They've adopted the Brotherhood ideology, the mentality. They move in to this big ass vault in somewhere in the south or somewhere in the north or somewhere wherever. Could be on an island. Could be anywhere. Could be in Europe for all we know. Could be in Canada. That'd be cool. There's a bunch of cool places there that you could do stuff. And they move in. They establish themselves there, and then you play part of that story. That's possible now. Because before we only had Brotherhood in the West, Brotherhood in the East. And we know from other games that there were splinter groups that had gone off in all kinds of different directions, and that there were ways to kind of encounter something along the line of the Brotherhood. But now it's made it so that they have more liberty to write in and connect more stuff. Obviously, there's still some limitations to it, but I think this is generally a good move that can result in better stuff going forward. So I'm looking forward to this. My final thoughts from the beta is that I want to continue to play this game. I know there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of issues. I have major issues with the story, with the lore, with the way that they've handled the NPCs, and I plan on campaigning hard on the forums and on Twitter and to the devs every opportunity I get, saying, look, we want a big NPC town. Open up one of the vaults and let us go into the vault without any weapons or armor or anything like that, and interact with a vault full of people. We don't like this concept of not being able to do or communicate with any NPCs other than us. It makes the world feel empty. It makes it feel dumb. It makes it feel kind of lifeless. I get the grand narrative that you're pushing, kind of makes sense, but it's not feeling right for a Bethesda game. I need those NPCs. I absolutely do. And there's a lot of stuff to hit on them, but overall I think that it's going good, and we will continue to cover the game. And there'll be a lot of people. We've already gotten, like, one of our live streams, we had like a group of people come on negative bomb us because it's like, oh, this game is, it's just for shills to play. It's like, no, it's not just for shills to play. There's different ways you can go about this, and it's not perfect, but at the same time, what do you want Bethesda to do? There was somebody that I was listening to this morning who said they need to get rid of this engine and they need to get on to Unreal 4. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to have the same game then. You're not going to have the same game at all. You're not going to be able to build a pyramid of cheese wheels. You're not going to be able to have the same level of interaction and modding. Modding is a huge one, and by removing that, even if they do put out some tools, you just don't have the freedom to add content that the modders are creating. The modding community would not be as strong. You wouldn't have the ability to do a lot of the world stuff. I've spent entire games where I'm just picking up like loot and armor and trying to build like a fortress out of pieces of armor by like placing it on the ground and building it like you would a pillow fort. It's like, wave goodbye to all of that. Wave goodbye to full body looting. Wave goodbye to being able to amass a pile of corpses somewhere. That's all of that is gone. Okay, and is that something that you want? Is that something that you just want this to become another God of War? It's like, oh great, next Bethesda game is out, play it for 60 hours, never touch it again. Is that what you want? Is this the direction that you want to move in? And no, I don't think it is. So
hashtag save the cheese wheels.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that we have confirmation that they've gutted the animation engine. They've completely rebuilt the animation engine from the ground up, which means movement and a lot of stuff. I hear even like modding is going to be a lot easier now going forward. There's lots of positive things we're hearing. We know that they're having a significant tech upgrade from Starfield to Elder Scrolls 6, and that the engine is being completely reworked. And now you say, hey, the engine is still ancient and it's still crap and it's still garbage and it still can't work. Well, say that to, go tell that to CDPR right now for their game. Because we saw what a tech engine upgrade did from The Witcher to what we've seen so far from Cyberpunk 2077. And the difference is amazing. The difference is stellar. It's not the Bethesda engine, but it's a pretty close general comparison. If you really want to, you really can rebuild things. So anytime you hear that, like, push back on it a little bit, because it's silly and it's kind of stupid, and I'm in a bad mood. But yeah, it's ridiculous to push that, because what do we get when we don't allow the creativity to flow in the direction that studios want to with the core strong leadership that they've had for years and years and years? Well, you get things like what's happening with Blizzard, what's happening with EA, and what's happening with Square Enix. And all of these companies, this leads into our second story, is that all of those companies have lost all of the net gains they've had currently up to this year. It's like from a year ago, from the beginning of the fiscal year this year to now, they have had, in some cases, an amazing gain, and then they have fallen flat on their face.
So they're about the same place they were a year ago.
Oh no, they were worse. They're worse.
They're worse off than they were a year ago.
Square Enix have lost $33 million. So not only did they lose everything they made this year, they're in the hole from this time last year, $33 million.
Okay. So what's going on here?
Huge.
What's the story with these companies? We've got EA, we've got Blizzard, we've got Square Enix, and Blizzard we talked about last week with the whole thing with the Diablo Immortal. Now, was that the flashpoint for Blizzard, which is owned by Activision?
I'll cover EA first. So EA had basically a big bubble. They had the regular games come out, but since April 2018, they're now negative growth. So they're down. At one point, their highest point was trading at $150 a share, almost nearly $150 a share. That's huge. Now they're selling at now their shares are worth about $93. So they've lost 30% of their net worth in the stock department. That you can chalk up to, they had some big falls right around where they made all those announcements. Battlefront came out, all this kind of stuff. They hit wall after wall after wall, and despite several attempts to bounce back, they're now on a net fall for the year. Now we go over to Blizzard. Blizzard, their highest point, which was right before BlizzCon, and oh my goodness, I feel so sorry for the people who bought into the company in August. They bought in, and they started buying in at $68 a share. Then it skyrocketed up to $83 a share at their highest point, and they thought, oh man, there's a ton of people who bought at 70 and 80 and 85, and they get up to, 83, 82, and they get up to 80, almost $84 a share. And in about a month, it's gone from $83 a share to today. It's starting to trade in and around at a little less than 60. And at certain points today, it was where it was a little while ago was 54. bucks a share. So again, they've had a net loss of almost 40% total loss, and they're coming close. Now, what happens with these companies is once you hit a certain point, the bears and the bulls kind of like protect your stock from going too far under, because too much of a net negative would result in a negative impact in other sectors. On it. It's very complicated. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not even like 100% on how this stuff works. But basically, this is a huge loss, and right now they're just trying to hold steady. They're trying to hold this thing above $50 a share, and they're desperately trying to hold on to that. And at the beginning of the year, at the very beginning of this year, 2018, they opened at $64. So they're not doing great right now. Activision is not doing great now. It started at BlizzCon. They had a sharp fall because of what they had revealed. Even before that, they had some falls because, again, this is Activision. So the story came out that their recent shooter came out, and instead of making $550 million, it only made $500 million, and they didn't hit that $550 million. Ooh, big! The game didn't gross as much as they were wanting. Now, they do have tons of money in the bank. They're one of the richest companies in the world as far as like what they sit on. We've heard estimates that they're sitting on like over like 14 billion. So it's this is a hard knock, but you can take these moments to do lots of cool things. For example, if they wanted to do a stock buyback and the company wanted to control more of its own fate, then they could buy as many of their stocks back as they could. There's some rules and things on that there's some legal loopholes that they have to go through for some of that stuff. But just because your stock price is falling doesn't mean that you're having a bad day. Sometimes you want that stock to go down so that you can reinvest and get, and shake off some of the controlling shares that you don't want to have out there, and you can get those back and kind of realign yourself or separate that up so there's not as much of a hill to climb when you're making certain choices within the company. Like I said, lots of heady business stuff, which is super, super boring. But this was a result mostly on their quarter, their financial statement that they had to make over yesterday, and basically it was not good. It was, so we've been losing players in pretty much every market, in pretty much everything that we're doing. Call of Duty did not, Black Ops did not, or not Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty, one of the newer one. It didn't perform as good as we were expecting. A bunch of these other things didn't perform as good as we were expecting, and so they've had a really bad fiscal period. Plus, their CEO just stepped down, so that's kind of problematic too. More of the eggheads at Activision are taking over more key positions at Blizzard. So there's a lot of things that are very concerning to people who watch this very closely. I would not advise investing in it for the moment, unless you had money to burn. Some people are like, it's a buy the dip, and we've had two big dips like 4 big dips this year, that if you bought it at the best time and then you sold it at their highest time, it's you can make a lot of money off of that. You really can, but it's in such a precarious state that I don't know whether or not it'll rebound that quickly again. They don't have any new announcements. They've burned through everything they could possibly do. They might, if they really rushed on it, they might be able to put out a new trailer for some new game in the next few weeks here, but I mean, basically, WoW has lost a ton of subscriptions. They do that every time, though, but this one seems to be a little worse than normal. And then you look over at, again, Square Enix. Square Enix started the year at 5,500 yen, which is a little, I'm not doing a currency conversion in here, but they started the year at 5,500. They've hit 5,700 about the middle of the year, but mostly it's been a lot of down, and now they're down to about 4,100, which is a big drop. Now, the worst they were at was at the end of October when they dropped below 4,000 and they were at about 3,800. That's the lowest that they were at there. So what is this? What do all of these things have in common? Well, two of them, Activision and Square Enix, both of them have lost in the last month one of their chief directors and chief creative geniuses at the companies, we'll say. People who have guided the company for years or managed to bring success to certain projects. That has negatively impacted them. Their games have negatively impacted them because these companies have done a lot of microtransactions recently and said that they're focusing in on microtransactions. So this is really causing some damage in the long term for these companies. And what we're seeing now,
you'd think that would be so popular with their audience.
Oh yeah. You think that microtransactions would be so popular and just everybody would be rushing to enjoy this amazing experience called microtransactions. No, it's the exact opposite, and it's at this moment it's kind of a joke and it's kind of sad. Now, yes, you can make a killer in the industry. However, what other big companies have learned is that you have to launch titles in combination with AAA games that have fleshed out lore, that have a fleshed out experience. Bethesda did it with theirs. They came out with Fallout Shelter, and at the same time they came out with their big announcement for their big game that was coming out very, very soon. And they're like, hey, and if you want to, try this mobile game because we think it's cool.
Well, and that's the other thing. They announced Fallout 4 first, and then they said, hey, and for those of you, you can't wait to play Fallout 4, hey, you can play this mobile game we've been making. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was quite well done, what they did there.
So the other thing that Square Enix hit today is that they did announce that their remake projects are again on hold again. Like these things were announced years and years and years ago, and all you're doing is you're just putting it to a new graphical engine. You're not adding very much or little at all story. It's like, goodness sakes, like it's really embarrassing. Like just watching today, Square Enix is down almost 1.5%, and just today, Activision's down 13.5%, and just today again today, Electronics Arts is down another 5.5%.
Yeah.
Now again, there's lots of this. You'll have days where you're down. Like if you've been watching the stock market at all, it's like if you have a heart condition, don't, because like if you're watching S&P 500 or if you're watching the Nasdaq, it's like some days they lose 500 points, like 10%, 5%, 6%, 8%. But then a couple days later, they're up 12%. So that's just the way that stocks have been recently. It's a very chaotic time. It's a great time for growth. But in overall, like the way that the S&P here, I'm just gonna pull up S&P 500 because this is one that most of my stocks are in, and I can say that, like, yes, it's been a roller coaster of a year, but at the beginning of the year, actually we'll go back to, so when I initially put in a bunch of money into this, I transferred over a bunch of stocks. The stock price was around 2,000. Today, despite all the ups and downs that it's had over the past few weeks and months, it's at 2,750. So that's a big net gain. Mm-hmm. That's almost a 30% gain overall in the last year.
Well, and that's the way these things work when you look at those trends. Yeah. They have the jagged lines going up and down because there's temporary.
And the overall growth has been really, really good. Now there's been some real great high points. There's a couple of high points where it hit a lot of like record highs. It almost broke 3,000. Which again is like that's a net gain of 30% overall. So stuff like this, again, it's normal to see ups and downs, and you get some spikes here and a couple spikes there, and yeah, if you can perfectly like bounce between those things, then you're a stock market genius and you can make a ton of money. However, it's like at the same time, it's like there, when it comes to what the gaming market's been through recently with all of these big name companies, is that they keep making mistakes and insulting their player base. And the player base keeps saying, we're not going to put up with this forever. And they go, of course you will, because we're the only, like, what are you going to go do? Play a bunch of, like, indie games? what are you going to go play? You're going to go play, oh, crap. I keep forgetting the name of that one game. The one that starts with a D. That one. It's like,
oh,
what,
that one.
Go play?
That one game that starts with a D. Gotcha.
Yeah. The one. Goodness sakes. But there's Divinity Original Sin, and then there was that other one, the first person sword fighting one. And it's like, what are you going to do? Go play those games, and then those games make huge sales. Like Lorien is set for a while, and so is this other smaller studio where they went out of their way to make these good games, and they're not playing into the politics, they're not playing into the microtransactions, they're not playing into the BS that you're getting from a lot of these other companies, where they're like, oh, of course you'll spend and play, of course you're going to spend $1,000 on our game. Of course you're going to spend $3,000, $7,000 for a ship in our game. Because why? Because we're the only people out here. Now that Star Citizen's not a big company, but it's just this. It's just they're showing that there's going to be a limit as to how much people are willing to take crap from these bigger companies, and that's the biggest thing. And Diablo Immortals, this thing was a April Fool's joke in 2014, and now it's reality. And not only is it reality, it's not even being made by them directly. It's being mostly made by this Chinese company that again, a few years ago was considered a joke, was considered a ripoff. What is the way that they make their money? They make their money by appealing to whales who will put in $500 to win for a day. It's like, wow, you got money to burn, but I guess I knew this. I didn't know. I met this one guy from a certain country that's really, really oil rich, and his fun was going out and blowing up a Rolls Royce once a week. Blowing up, not driving into the ground or into the dirt. No, pack it with explosives and blow it up for fun. That was his fun. Like, seriously. Like, is there nothing better to do with $500,000 every week than to go out and just literally burn it because you can? I said, why do you do this? Because I can.
It's like, and then it's like the Rolls-Royce company is deciding that that's their key audience.
Yeah. So that's their key audience. Now we've packed our cars now with phosphorus so that when it blows up, you get a light show out of it. It's like, why would you do that? You wouldn't, because you're not a moron.
Yeah.
Right?
No, exactly.
You're not an idiot.
So like, you have to wonder the long-term value of this is not great, and we're seeing that now. We're seeing that with these stock price, the declining value of these companies. And so what's the takeaway here then? What is the takeaway for game developers, and what's the takeaway for gamers who are, the consumers of this market? What do we need to do? What do we need to keep our eye on? And what do game companies just need to do differently?
Keep up pressure. Stop going to sites that have journalists that defend and protect these companies, and who are insisting and telling you that this because this just came across the desk today as well. Two other things I want to add that was not in the description. Diablo Immortals has already received several prestigious awards from various media companies for being a groundbreaking experience.
Say what now?
Yeah, this just came out. So a couple of companies, big media journalist groups, have come out to praise Diablo Immortals as one of the best games of. Well, it's not out yet, so they're just like
Have they
preparing
played
these
it,
awards
or did
in
they play the
advance.
game? Did they go back and play that game that they reskinned and just said,
Well,
"Oh
that's
yeah,
a good question
if
because it
this
was
the-"
playable. It was playable at BlizzCon. There's pictures and videos where like basically nobody's touching it, but there were a handful of people who said, "Oh, it was amazing." It's like, okay, well, according to pretty much everybody, that's you're full of BS, and that's not actually what's going on here, and that's
Yeah. I want to talk to people who were on the ground, who don't work for journalism companies that tried the game out, because from what we saw, there was nothing groundbreaking in that game.
no,
You
no.
watch the
And
gameplay,
there's not
you watch the
because
trailer.
this is.
There's nothing
I've
groundbreaking in
played
that at all.
half a dozen games that are basically this and have been basically this for a really long time, and I have to say that for the most part, it's completely it's a complete joke. One of these awards is coming from PC Gamer, which I've got to question what journalist at PC Gamer is giving them this award and why, because this isn't even a PC game. This is a mobile game, and my respect level, if this is true, again, I haven't confirmed it. If this is true, my respect for PC Gamer has gone down the toilet, and I probably won't be going to that site again. And that's because it's like, okay, why are you sponsoring this? Why are you getting behind this? Why do you think that this is a good thing? It's like, goodness sakes, this is worse than a joke. It's a controversy of actual standards. But whatever. We're gonna see a ton more of these companies do this. We're gonna see again with Konami going out of their way to make these little gambling games where they think that this is the future of gaming. That is until the little initial rush is over with, and you're left with falling profits every year.
Yeah,
like,
it's short term gain and long term just your value. Like, where's the sticking value with any of this stuff?
But there is for some companies there is. Candy Crush has done enormously well for a very long time. However, their latest numbers show that they're starting to lose people. So
right, but Candy Crush is a mobile game. Was always intended to be a mobile game. Was always intended to be, something.
And it was always predatory too.
Asleep,
That's the other thing. It was always predatory.
Well, sure.
It's not like they became predatory overnight someday. It's like no, they have always been predatory.
But presumably, I have never played it myself, but presumably, it's a fun game that people enjoy.
It's an addicting game,
and it's
like the game is designed to be addicting.
Yeah, so
from the ground up, it's designed straight off to elicit a similar reaction that you get from gambling, or in some cases that you get from like social pressure drinking,
right.
which is another one where it's like oh yeah, well when you're designing a game to elicit that, hey, when you and your buddies are forcing Joe to drink too much to the point where he passes out or breaks a leg and doesn't even realize it. Yeah, we want to elicit that same kind of reaction, but just tie it to somebody's wallet instead. It's like, well, oh, I'm sure there's a special place in hell for you somewhere.
But for every Flappy Bird and Angry Birds and Candy Crush, there are a million other crappy app games that don't go anywhere or see moderate success, and so becoming the next big thing in that market, that's a I mean, it's kind of a shot in the dark. But
it's hard.
The thing is, the ones that become popular, they're not the complex RPGs that we play on PC. They are the Angry Birds and the Flappy Birds and the Candy Crushes, the simple mechanics, bright flashing lights, something to keep you entertained while you're falling asleep or on the crapper. Like it's not Diablo.
Yeah,
and
we'll see where it goes from here. Their stocks might recover. They might just, 5 years from now, Blizzard might be the highest grossing company again. because of World of Warcraft mobile has just hit and is being played by
Right.
by a billion people around the planet. That might happen, and there might be a place for that, but I can guarantee you that the vast majority of people who are playing their games on PC today are not going to be part of that pool. Are not going to be part of the people that are doing that.
When
now,
I look at
they want
this,
to move on from us. They want to leave us behind. They want to target greener fields that are filled with people desperate to get an entertainment fix for $50. Maybe I guess we're moving that direction. You know what else is moving in that direction? And this is the other thing that crossed my path. You have a couple of days left, 2-3 days left to buy games, PlayStation related games, and of course loot boxes in Chicago before a 9% tax is automatically added to everything that you buy
in Chicago,
including loot boxes. Yeah, Chicago has a entertainment tax. So when you go to the movies, when you buy a movie, when you buy a game, now when that's through PlayStation, even when you're buying a digital game, if your shipping address is located within the city limits of Chicago, you're paying a 9% tax on everything that you're buying.
Sounds fantastic.
Like,
and that includes digital goods, like
yeah, that includes digital goods as long as you have as long as your shipping address can be identified to Chicago. Amazon is starting to charge this now. Same with Google Play and Apple, the Apple Store. All of those things will be including a 9% tax. Strangely enough, though, postal PO boxes just outside of Chicago have gone through the roof in the last couple of weeks and are going to go through the roof yet again. All this is doing is driving people that are buying stuff in Chicago to register a PO box outside of Chicago to reroute all their mail to and through, which is hilarious, really, really hilarious. But this is also like, so this is not just games. Like, this is the actual PlayStation. So when the new PlayStation comes out in Chicago, if you go to a store to pick up a $600, $500, however much it's going to be, PlayStation or Xbox next year,
you're paying $50 more than everybody else.
You're paying $50 more than everybody else. Like, is this like, this is brilliant? But again, you step outside the Chicago line, you go to a store there, you're paying $50 less. So what is this going to do? Same thing that happened to soft drinks in that other, I can't remember that one city in the States, where soft drink sales within the city dropped to almost zero, and soft drinks just outside of the city, where there wasn't this sugar tax thing that was going on, the sales there jumped by 400% or 500%. So it's like brilliant, guys. Keep it up. I'm sure it's great. Will we see this federally? Maybe at some point. I kind of doubt it in the States, but in other countries, I'm sure that there'll be a tax. This also affects things like Netflix and stuff as well. So any kind of like entertainment in Chicago, if you have an address in Chicago, it's going to start charging you an extra 9%.
Right.
So yikes.
Let's not end this off on a down note, though. I want to talk about Megan's comment here. it's so difficult to stay positive about the gaming industry when news like this is what is constantly happening all the time, and I feel that yes, we hear about this kind of thing all the time. We hear about EA, we hear about Blizzard doing these things that just make gamers feel disrespected, but not all is lost. Not everything is bad. There are companies who don't do these kinds of things who appear to be doing very well. So let's just end off talking about what is good that's coming down the road. What can we look forward to over the next couple of years?
We will see some continued shakeups in how various companies are dealing with this. The biggest problem at Square Enix right now is not their loss of money. They've had several investments and stuff like this going on for the past couple of years, but overall, their biggest problem is development hell. Is getting stuck in, they announced a game 8 years ago and they're still working on it today. It's like, again, you need to have that window, which is why Bethesda and why other companies have been closing the development window considerably. They understand that things are moving at a much faster pace now. They need to get games out quicker from development time to release. So what we're going to see is smart companies are going to start doing that more often. So we're going to start to, we'll hear about an initial, startup of game. 3 years later, we're going to have that game. That seems to be an industry standard that people are starting to push towards. They want to have an announcement of a game that they've spent about a year and a half on, and between that initial announcement and a release, they want no more than like 15, 16 months. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're looking at. We're going to have more. We're going to get a lot more focus on short-term announcements. So we expect, and we are probably going to see, again, we've got this big Xbox event coming out tomorrow, where there's a good chance that we're going to see some very sudden announcements from studios who've made some games and who are like, hey, we've got a game coming out and it's coming out in 6 months. Mm-hmm. We'll start to see that a little bit more as far as the big titles go. And we will see more of this push to mobile gaming. And the best thing to do with that is just to never touch it, never download it, never use it, never spend money on it, never get it. If you want to send a message, send it that way. Yeah. Don't ever fall for it. Even if you just want to try it out. Yeah. Like, just don't. Avoid it as much as you can, because that is it's just not a good place to be in.
Angry Birds was my gateway app. Notional's right, though. Vote with your wallet. Yeah, stay away from the companies that have these predatory practices. Stay away from the companies that basically disrespect their fans and their customer base. Don't get up there and say, don't you guys have phones? We don't want to play Diablo on our phones. That's the bottom line here. And don't put people down for that. That's stupid. And don't tell them you're doing them some favor by loading your games up with loot boxes and microtransactions. But yeah, it's not across the board, and it's not everybody. It's not everywhere. You do still have very customer, fan-oriented companies. Mm-hmm. And I would put CD Projekt Red in that category. I would put Bethesda in that category. Yeah, they've got their problems. We have some criticisms.
You got to remember with Bethesda, it's like, and this is we talked about this on Tuesday, I think. The big thing here to remember is that this is a side project for Bethesda. It's not a main project. They did not stop production on Starfield to work on this. They made that quite clear. They brought in another studio that helped significantly, and they had a handful of people still working on it at the Bethesda studio. Everything that we've heard about Starfield is that the game was pushed back because they want to polish it more. They want to make it a little bit better. They wanted to give room for... they wanted to give a little bit of room to 76. But for the most part, it's not that it's subsiding or cutting in line. It's that we are going to see Starfield out probably next year. It's a very strong chance that we'll see it out next year, or we're definitely going to hear more on it, and they're definitely going to start pushing it this year. I would be very shocked if it didn't release either 2019, 2020 at the latest, but I'm pretty sure it'll be out next year.
Hello, Lapamato Gaming. Don't listen to Notional. He's trolling you. Once again, saying you missed the release date of Cyberpunk 2077.
On Cyberpunk 2077 news, there's nothing out this week. It's still very, very quiet. Like I said, it's huge gaming month. We did not expect, and we still don't expect to see anything substantial from CDPR other than a handful of more interviews over the next probably about 2-3 weeks. We'll get something most likely in December, and then we will probably start to pick up on drops coming out of the studio again in January. So that, so like we're not we're watching this every day. We're listening every day. We have our contacts and we're communicating and we're looking at stuff. But right now they've kind of, you know, they're really focused on working on the engine right now, working on the game, working on a lot of polish, a lot of things that they've got in the game. There is more news to be had for sure. There's more news to come, but it's kind of a keep your head down month in November. So if you're not releasing a game, you're gonna kind of keep your head down and you just kind of keep working, because it's also a lot of financial reviews come up in November as well. So that's something that a lot of studios are dealing with at the moment too. So it's a quiet time. It's not a calm before the storm. We're not going to get a ton of stuff in December, but more information will be coming on Cyberpunk. It's 100% not forgotten. It's just they're kind of like in stealth mode for the next couple of weeks here. So,
which is
and Borderlands 3, we are expecting to hear or to get some more news on that shortly. Like I said, there's a big event tomorrow. What comes of that, we'll see. We're not 100%. There's a good chance that we'll see or hear something about it, and then there's also a good chance that we'll see or hear something on the Game Awards next month. And the Game Awards, sorry, is it this month? I can't remember. Oh my goodness, I should probably double check that. But yeah, we'll Jeff Keighley is really looking forward to pushing more announcements at this one coming up. So story popped just recently. So they are going to feature the largest lineup of new game announcements ever at this Games Award coming up here. This is on December 6th. This is less than a month away now. We are expecting to see several big games show up here and to do several big announcements, several big shows. This is going to be the biggest Game Awards we've seen thus far. It's going to be the most people. It's going to be the most high-ranking people in the industry. So this is really exciting. So again, we're going to have a couple of weeks of kind of stealth mode from a lot of companies, and then we're going to see a whole bunch of amazing, never seen before announcements come out at the Game Awards. So this is going to be big. Keep your eyes on that. We are going to cover this live for sure. We're going to be talking about this nonstop here when this stuff, and there's some leaks that'll be coming out about this kind of stuff too, coming up here shortly.
I can't wait to see Borderlands 3 mobile. Woo! No, that's not going to happen. Sorry, I'm not going to jinx it. Bad.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
So, but yeah, that's some exciting stuff. But come on, CD Projekt Red, we're starving for news here. Give us something. Just a crumb. Just give us something. Give us another beep tweet. I don't care. We need something. We're starving over here. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for joining us in the chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. And before you leave the stream today, please don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough. And we want to thank everybody for supporting this show, and especially our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, Jeranon, and our 2 anonymous supporters. Don't forget to like and sub if you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, thank you for subscribing and reviewing the show. And hey, feel free to join us next, well, it's not going to be this coming Tuesday, but the week following on Tuesday at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, for the live show where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. On a scheduling note, there's going to be no formal podcasts next week, as if you could call this a formal podcast, but the regular podcasts aren't going to be happening because I'm away, but Obsidian will still be around, and he is going to be doing some live streaming of Fallout 76, possibly some other stuff. He'll be active in the Discord if news drops, so definitely connect with him on one of those platforms next week. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Asheninity. On behalf of Cybsidian, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all in a couple weeks, and Cy will talk to you next week.